I noticed I became so conscious of what I was saying. I was saying, "Hey, my name is Mick, and I'm a coach," and I had said that to everyone I met, and that made me realize, is that actually who I want to be?
Welcome back to the podcast for small businesses. Today we have the pleasure of having Mick Rutjes on, and he is a coach. And one of the things that I think makes him unique and is his unique selling point is how many countries he has visited. You are 21, am I correct?
Yeah.
And visit 27 countries, which gives you a complete unique perspective on the world. Like I always feel my view expands when I visit a new place. So,
Right.
to start us off, what is one of the things you think you've learned from visiting so many countries?
Ooh, good question. Thanks for having me, by the way. And just to check, you're recording already?
Yes.
No, to answer your question, there's so many things, man. Every single country uh, brings back something else from you. I feel like my biggest lesson, which was I think my first lesson of what traveling can actually do for you, was when I was in Cambodia, and I'd been traveling Thailand for about a month, and then I was in Cambodia for a week. And it's interesting because I just started off traveling and I stayed in hostels and I met so many people, like a lot of people. And um, when you meet so many people, you have so many conversations, and most conversations all start the same way. It's all about who you are and what you do. And because I had met so many people, I had shared my own story so many times. And it was only in Cambodia when I arrived at this hostel, which was on an island. It was the only hostel there. And so there were lots of people in that hostel. And I arrived, and I remember some of my friends were already there because they arrived early. And I sat at the table, and there was this guy sitting next to me, and we started the conversation. And I said, "Hi, my name is Mick, and I'm a coach." And then he asked a few questions, and I was sharing my story. And I noticed I became so conscious of what I was saying. I was saying, "Hey, my name is Mick, and I'm a coach," and I had said that to everyone I met, and that made me realize, is that actually who I want to be? Because how I'm now perceived by all these people is as Mick, the life coach, who's traveling and passionate about spirituality. That was who I was, and I was using stories to make myself more interesting. And I remembered that I really wanted people to like me, and I became so conscious of that in that hostel I decided to experiment with it. So to some people I said I was studying chemistry, and to other people I said I was a magician, even to the point where I was so playing with my identity. And it made me realize that it didn't matter what story I gave people. It didn't matter what I said, that who I like, what I did, or where I came from, or what languages I spoke. It didn't matter. People liked me anyway. And to me, that was such a big breakthrough that I was like, it really doesn't matter who I say I am. People like me based off my energy, of the person that they interact with. And whether I'm a chemistry student, a life coach, or a magician truly doesn't matter. And that gave me a bit of confidence about being who I am and just being conscious of that. So I think that is my answer to your question.
That's a beautiful message. I was smiling while you were saying it because I was like, that's very interesting. That seems like something I could do just to
Mm,
what would happen. We
right.
spoke on this on our first call. I always like to say things in a different way to people because how does Mick react to me saying it this way? How does Mick react saying it this way? It can even be the tone.
Right.
And then you came kind of with a boring but very profound answer that it doesn't really matter. Which I
Right.
think is
Yeah, for
great.
me it meant a lot. And I think that uh, this whole shaping of your identity has really played a big role in me traveling. You come across so many people who all interpret you in a different way, even to people that you don't speak the same language. Who are you then? What's left of you when you are in a situation like that? Who are you truly? And I even made friends in a silent retreat where you don't talk for 7 days. You don't talk to them. And after you come out of it and you're like, we've known each other for years without talking. And that on a deeper level even made me realize, like, it truly doesn't matter what I say. I can even say nothing and people still like me for who I am.
That must have been a weird experience.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
That was really cool. Yeah, that was life changing, I would say. Yeah.
Do people smile more at a silent retreat?
No, no, really, no. I think
Huh.
I was sort of like, you're not supposed to make any form of contact with people.
Hmm.
So sometimes when you open the door for someone, you're like a smile, but when you pass each other in the hall, you sort of look down, or you don't, or you look each other in the eyes, but you don't give off any signals of whatsoever. Um, so no, I don't. I mean, maybe they smile to themselves, but I don't get more smiles in a silent retreat as I get outside of it.
It's really interesting. It kind of reminds me of North Korea, where nobody wants to look at anybody. But that's a different situation.
Correct.
Bit different, yes. Two very different scenarios.
Yeah.
The silent retreat doesn't sound that attractive, but if I pick between North Korea and the silent retreat, sign me up today, Mick. You tell me the name of it, I'm going.
So sign you up for the voluntary one. Yeah.
Yeah, please,
Right.
please do that one.
No, it was really cool. We actually were lectured by this monk who is the translator of the Dalai Lama. So we basically got the Dalai Lama, just a different body, because he had the exact same knowledge, and he was giving us lectures about all kinds of stuff. And you're meditating, you're listening to that guy. It really changed you.
With all of those lessons you must have learned traveling to so many different countries, how do you filter out the noise? Because for me personally, ideas hit me at 120 miles an hour and I'm only going 100. I can't implement all of them. And you, it
Right.
must have been even like more extreme.
I feel like everything happens for a reason. I know everything happens for a reason. And I don't think today I am the total package of everything I learned. I think learning has to do also with letting go of the things that you don't believe anymore. Some truths I prefer more now than I did 1 year ago. And there's even a book I wrote 1 year ago that I don't agree with myself anymore. But back then it was my truth. And back then it was fully what I stood behind. And so I feel like the traveling and everything, it just changes me. It's like I pick out the best here and here. And it's like you have all these cups and you're just filling them up with the best liquid that you can get. And sometimes you take a bit out and then you refill it with something even better. And I think that's why, yeah, I'm coming across many different life lessons and many different metaphors that I could use to help people. And I think the best just stick with me and others are being let go of.
So, what advice do you have for people, as some folks fall into the trap of trying to absorb everything? You've obviously gotten pretty good at filtering out what's actually applicable and what's not, and letting go of things. How do you let go of information that's not useful?
I don't do it on purpose, I think.
Ah,
I think it just happens. But I tend to go with what I prefer, what feels good to me, what excites me most. And there's some weird things that I believe in that I think I'm the only person on earth who believes in those things, um, because that's just beneficial to me. I believe that, um, let's say I'm in a country where malaria is a pretty big thing. I still wouldn't feel pressured to take the vaccine or anything like that, because I believe that, if I get stung by a mosquito who holds malaria, I'm not going to get sick. And that this might might be weird that I say it, but I prefer that belief. I believe that the chances of me getting sick from that are way less. And there's other people who go through the world who believe that, when they visit that country, they're definitely going to get sick because there's malaria in the country. I could believe the same thing. I just choose to believe something different. And now this is a completely extreme example, but I feel like in our daily life, I believe everything happens for a reason, and that's because that suits me. I prefer that. And so I've learned in my reality, I know for a fact that everything happens for a reason. Now, for you, that may be different. And so I think this whole journey of self-discovery has a lot to do with your preferences. What do you believe, about the world to be true? Because that's essentially what you're going to create. Another something I believe. And for me, I know that to be true. But that's just because I prefer that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
it makes sense. So, as a life coach, if one of your clients is trying to adopt that, they're trying to create their own reality, or the way they the way they view reality. how do you train them when they run up against competition in business that has an opposite view? Like what is the life coaching experience for dealing with someone that comes from the exact opposite viewpoint? I mean, obviously there's all the standard conversation techniques up to and including just not talking to them.
Right. I don't know. I think that as a coach, I'm not an expert in that area.
Okay.
I have my own truth. I have my own reality. I'll never put that on someone else. I'll never tell someone, hey, this is what you should do. This is what you have to believe. But what I am an expert at is to get that information that person needs out of that person. I believe that everyone knows fully well what to do and what their best next step is. I believe that everyone is perfect in and of itself and has got their own medicine. And my job as a coach, I feel, is to bring it out. So whenever someone would come to me with a scenario like that, a simple question like, what would you do? Or what would you do if you weren't afraid? Or what would you do if you had true abundance and money wasn't a problem? Those are all questions that get that person thinking and come up with an answer that I personally, as the human being of 21 years of age, could never come up with.
That's a good approach.
Thank you.
You're trying to ferret out the things that are already inside the client.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's not much of me that's actually present in a coaching conversation. So everything that sometimes I'll throw in a metaphor, usually from traveling, because those are the way I learned my lesson, and just helps people integrate what's happening and make them realize, like, right, I'm not alone in this. There's another person who goes through it in the same type of way. But most often it's all about the person that I work with. That's where the magic happens. And I just get it out. I don't do anything other than that.
I want to stick to the subject of your reality a little bit longer.
Okay.
Since with your experience in your life, a lot of people, they haven't had the luxury of finding their own reality. What would you say to help those people to actually go out and find their true identity?
That's an interesting question. Can I ask you a question back?
Yeah, go ahead.
What made you ask that question?
Because it's something I can relate to. I can relate to
Right.
how depressed I was when I wasn't myself,
Right.
like 3 years ago.
What did you do to get out of it?
What I did to get out of I'm on the podcast now. I like this. Very soon.
Right.
Well, first of all, my environment. And I'm not talking about moving a different place. I'm talking about the way you interact with your environment, the places you choose to go, the people you choose to speak to. You can choose not to go there. Choice. And then we come into, I luckily have a very reflective mind. So analyzing things comes very naturally. And once I started really digging down into it, and really started to ask myself logical questions, like you said yourself, the questions aren't there. Like the answers aren't there. You just need to ask yourself the questions to get the answers. And
Right.
another person, I can't remember his name, I wish I could. I asked him a question whilst I was going through this process, and he said that, what was it? It just did flip my mind completely. But he said overthinking is not a bad thing. The question is, overthink something enough so there's not any more solutions. You answered everything. You can't, at this point, you're just circling back. It's like, I already know that. Of course, the thought comes into my brain once in a while. And then I'll just think, oh, well, this is the answer. Pretty simple.
Right.
So that's how I went through it myself.
No, I think you already said the magic word, choice.
Yeah.
You phrased the question where you said, what would you say to someone who isn't in a position where they can create their own reality? I believe you're always creating your own reality. Even to anyone who's watching this, you made yourself watch this. Whether we take that on a very spiritual level or whether we take it on the level of you grabbed your phone and clicked on it. And even small things like that, you're always in control. It's always a choice. It's a choice to keep listening. And while you're listening and keep listening, that's also a choice. So I believe you're always in a position to create your own reality. And therefore, it's not so much about getting into that place because you're already there. It's more about realizing that you are in that place. You are in a place to just grab the ropes again and feel in control and be in control and act as if you're in control. The best advice I would have for someone who is in a situation like you, and I haven't been in a situation like that, but I like the analogy that someone gave to me that said that you should act as if you are the main character in a movie. Now that just act as if there's cameras on you. And for some people, this can really help. Others would be like, "What the fuck, no?" But just act as if there's cameras on you. What would you do differently? And many of us know the answer. Oh, I wouldn't, snooze 25 times. Already something like that, and choosing not to do that is already a step closer to being the person who you actually want to be. So yeah, I think we always have a choice, and yeah, you said it yourself.
Yeah, life is a line of choices, basically.
Right.
How did you start your business? That's one thing that our audience is always curious to hear stories. You have a unique approach to being a life coach. So what was the mechanism? Did you go out and take a bunch of start your business seminars, or did you just make it up as you went along?
The latter. The how I started is by just starting, I guess. I started this online study called Spiritual Life Coaching, and I did that. And when you're on a path like that, you get asked the question, "What do you really want?" A lot of times, people are throwing that question at you, and it's one of the best coaching questions out there, in my opinion. And it just led me to the answer, helping people. I want to help people. And then you take that a step further into thinking like, okay, what skills do you have? What can you offer? How can you help someone? And I didn't really know. I didn't know what was suitable for me until someone asked me the magical question that I'm never going to forget. What do people thank you for? That when they do, you're like, it was nothing. I didn't do anything.
Man, that's a good question.
It was such a good question.
Very good question.
Immediately, all types of scenarios popped up in my mind where people thanked me after having a conversation with me. They were like, "That was so helpful." And I was like, I just listened. I didn't do anything. But so many people loved it. And I got to trace those steps back. And I was like, maybe I can do something with it. Maybe I can help people just by talking to them. And this was already through my studies to become a life coach. So I knew I was on the right path. But that was the moment where I was like, all right, that's me. I am on the right path right now. And from then on, I started on Instagram. That was the first thing I did. I did that anonymously at first, posting quotes and stuff like that, building up a little bit of a following. And later on, I sometimes read some of my own quotes, and most of them were based around getting out of your own comfort zone and things like that. And there I was sitting behind my screen on an anonymous profile telling people to get out of their comfort zone. Right?
Yeah.
So I was like, that's kind of hypocritical. So I put myself out there. I decided to use my face, and I decided to share it with all of my friends. And from then on, people really started to like it. And a friend of a friend hit me up because she wanted coaching, and that's basically how it started. She wanted to start coaching with me, and I did it for free at first. And I coached so many people for free. And then this first client was like, "Hey, you need to ask money for this, because I feel like I owe you now. I want to pay you back in some way." And so I did. And that was the moment where I asked 49 euros for my coaching, and I guess that's when my business had started.
Oh, that's a great story.
Thank you.
We don't hear very many people that started that way. We did. I just fell into this sideways, and then Moss and I met by accident, and so on. It just snowballed. But yeah, it's really refreshing to hear someone say that.
Right.
Because we started our business to help people. The money was secondary. And so I like hearing that vibe from you. It's like you're already helping people, and then eventually somebody's like, "Hey, take this money."
Yeah, it was really like that because I didn't want it. But that was a big lesson for me as well. as a coach, I'm not asking people to pay me because I want to get paid. I'm asking people to invest in themselves because they want to change. And there's such a big difference.
Yeah, and you
Where
need
do
money.
most of your clients? Do most of your clients come from the Western countries or the Eastern countries? Like, who do you most find you connect with?
I mean, some people are in America. There's a lot of Dutch people. I've coached a lot of Dutch people. There's some people in England. I had someone in, I don't really remember where it was. There's a lot of countries that I coach people in. I think Asia, some parts, maybe Philippines, something like that. There's like I wouldn't be able to remember, but all over the world actually. And I mean,
That's good.
when traveling and having a conversation with someone, sometimes you can call that coaching. Now they haven't invested in me. So the people who have invested in coaching with me, usually America, England, Netherlands, around that.
So no Danes yet, huh? You gotta watch out for those Danish guys.
Nope. Yeah.
Once we come, we don't leave. That's the
Right. No
problem.
problem.
Going into that, probably one question comes up to our listeners' minds while we're sitting here speaking about Mick has clients from the entire world is how do you go out and actually find and acquire those clients? We talked a little bit about Instagram. We can delve a bit more into that, or if you have any other ways you would like to share, also more than welcome.
Yeah. So my first few clients came through Instagram. There's a few other ways where people just fell on my path. Like sometimes it just happened where someone just hits you up and then you're like, okay, I didn't know you could find me through that. For example, I post meditations and stuff like that on this app called Insight Timer. And through Insight Timer, someone had found me and then went to my Instagram and then to my website and then had contacted me. So it's ways like that. But that was all in the beginning. Didn't really have a strategy. I was just out there and I was like, "You want coaching? Come." I believe that as a coach, you can't really explain what coaching is like. You got to have someone feel it. You got to have someone experience it. So keeping that in mind, I used to give a lot of free sessions away through Instagram. I remember, to link it into the silent retreat that I was in, there was a group picture. We're like 100 people more. And I posted it on Instagram being like, hey, if you can spot me, you get a free session. And there were like a lot of people who responded to that because they saw me. It wasn't that difficult. I just, wanted more clients. And a lot of people responded, became my clients later on. So it was those strategies that I just did because I thought it was fun. Nothing from marketing trainings or anything like that. And then later on, I discovered LinkedIn, which worked really well. There's also been a period in my life where I was on Facebook Messenger and I just messaged 100 people a day. This was like last year, January, I think. I would just message everyone I could find in Facebook groups that interested me because I just wanted new connections. And that was my best way of connecting with people. So I would send people a text, like I had prepared the standard text and I had prepared my second text and the third text, which would invite them to a conversation. And I would just send it to everyone. And whole January, I talked to so many people, which got me quite a handful of clients. And it worked, but I didn't really like the approach because I felt too pushy. But it's a way to do things. I'm just sharing all of the ways that I use. And then LinkedIn as well, when you connect with people and you actually connect with them, not trying to sell them anything, but just connect as human beings and get in a conversation. And someone's like, hey, I kind of want more of that. I want to learn from you. So it's things like that. Then later on, I was invited to join podcasts and stuff like that, which has also helped with people who then started to follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram. So I've mainly seen those platforms, yes, to reach out, especially Facebook, but also to build my online curriculum vitae in a way. That's just where people find me. And I've noticed that the amount of followers gives you a certain, it matters to people, right? If you have an account with 29 followers or an account with 29,000, people look different at you. So I feel like it's just a way to build authority as a coach. And that's how I use those platforms. And then as well, later on, people referred me to other people, and then I got referrals, and that's how now I'm usually working with people.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So
Thank you.
that's a great story to help our listeners not give up.
Right. There's so many ways. If you think you've tried them all, you haven't.
You haven't, because you got to
there's a-
create your own reality that there's always another way.
Right. You there's so many ways. Like I've created a I like this story always. So I was in South Africa and we were going out to this bar and we had a few drinks. It was fun. It was Saturday night and I was in the bathroom and I was taking a piss and I was standing next to this guy. We started the conversation and I don't know how it went. I don't fully remember everything. All I remember is that the week after I had him planned in my calendar for a coaching conversation. And I was like, if I can do that, then I really don't know what other, like there has to be so many ways out there in which you can create clients for yourself. So that's pretty cool. But it's the confidence behind it, I guess. I coach my Uber driver. It's things like there's people anywhere. There's people anywhere who need your help without maybe even realizing it. So yeah, get creative as fuck. Get creative as you can.
I took one note from this call. It's to get wasted before I do cold outreach.
No, I don't think that was a lesson.
That's the only thing I heard.
Right. I'm sorry.
All right, so we got to ask a really bizarre question now because about 5 years ago, Moss taught me that the reason for the whole Viking movement was Danish mushrooms that these guys were eating. Have you guys ever tried Danish mushrooms down there in the Netherlands?
I don't know if they were Danish. I've done mushrooms.
I hope they were not the Danish ones Mike spoke about because they are deadly. I haven't tried them myself, so don't take my word for it. But I imagine them being quite strong if they're also deadly.
Right. I haven't done those. No.
All right,
I
so
wouldn't
now
recommend.
We can ask more business questions now.
I was like, what?
Good question, though. Good question.
It never occurred to me that would be the answer, and I actually have a tie-in for your responding to things around us and sort of creating the way that we're going to respond and how we're going to be. Because I was curious because I didn't know any other Danes except for Moss, so I was like, well, what was really, we all know the official story why Vikings happened, but what's the Danish view?
Right.
And so yeah, the answer was mushrooms. Our mushrooms are better than anybody else's.
Oh. Mike, you make us look bad.
Nah.
Sorry, what did you say, Mike?
You guys rode in open rowboats all the way to North America, dude. Nothing can speak.
Oh.
What's next for your business? You got any webinars coming up or any books people should know about?
So I just published my book last week, but that's a book about travel. Hasn't really got that much to do with coaching, although you could self-coach yourself through it. This year, I'm only working together with 10 individuals, which is my plan. Last year, I used to work with as many people as I could. And this year, I've decided to be more exclusive and just work with 10 people who I actually genuinely want to work with and help further to, be way more present. It can be a bit from call to call if you have many clients. And another thing I'm very excited about launching is something called the Coaching Gym, which is going to be launched in February, so my biggest struggle when I just started off coaching is that I wanted more practice to get better at coaching. But to get practice, I needed to get clients. But for myself to get clients, I needed more practice. So in the beginning of my coaching journey, I was in this vicious cycle that I just couldn't get out because I needed practice, but I was afraid to coach people because I didn't have enough practice. And so it's weird. So I decided to come up with something because I realized that there's more people who have this problem, to create a space where coaches come together to coach each other, watch each other coach, and be coached. What else do you want? It's like going to the gym, but then as coaches to, get the coaching reps in. So I decided to launch that. And there's some people who are already interested and are going to join me on that journey. We're just going to have 2 calls a week where people coach each other, get the practice, learn from others, reflect, all things like that. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I love that. I
haven't
love
even
that.
heard of anybody doing this. I think we
Me
need
neither.
to let everybody know this is something that they should check into.
Right. I mean, I feel like if you want to get better at coaching, you have to practice. It doesn't matter how
Yes.
many books you read. You need to be able to hold a conversation. There's this thing that if there's a coach listening to this, you're gonna know what I mean. If you're in a coaching conversation and your client pauses and you feel like you have to speak, but you actually know that you should stay quiet, that can be such a awkward feeling moment, but that's only something you get better at once you go through it often enough. You can't read books about it. You can't hear me talk about it often, like so many times. That's not what's going to make you better at it. So therefore I was like, if you want to be a better coach, you got to coach. There's no other way of doing it. So I'd like to create a space for coaches to become better at coaches, because wouldn't it be amazing if the world was full of coaches? Anyone can name themselves coach, but there's not that many actual good coaches out there.
No, definitely not. And I think this is definitely something that people should do. And also, if you're not a coach but you're in a field where you also need experience, go out and see if there's a similar one. This is actually how me and Mike met each other, was because we were role playing. This was sales, bit different, but the same principle. To be a good salesperson, you gotta sell. And if you haven't sold anything, nobody wants to hire you. So how do you get the confidence? You go in and practice sales. And then you can also practice how the call with your next employer is going to go. Role play that as well. Role play all of those things. That's the only thing you can learn. Anything that has to do with communication, basically.
Yeah. The idea actually came from a sales gym. It was actually called Sales Gym as well, where people came to practice their sales skills. Why do we have that for sales but not for coaching?
Yeah, that's how we felt about it for business startups.
Yeah.
We created an environment where people can model and practice everything before they actually have to put any money into starting a company. So it's a good way to find out if it's for you or not.
Right, exactly.
So we'll have links down below this interview for you guys and girls to sign up or to contact Mick. Cool. What do you have any final words for us before we end? Or something everybody should know?
Something everybody should know. Well, to then round it off about the reality creation part, it's always interesting with clients when you point things out to them and are capable of telling them that basically they did that to themselves without actually pointing the finger. But many things that are going on in your life, you did that to yourself. There's no one else who is responsible for the way your life is other than you are. And you can point fingers at people, but the moment that you stop blaming others for the way that your life is, you can take back control of whatever is going on and change it, or not, and keep going. But then at least you know that you're guilty of creating that. And I feel like that is one of the most powerful things you can do to get your own power back, and to realize, like, wait a second, if I want change, who am I waiting for other than myself? Because there's no one who's going to change your life for you.
No, it's your life, your decisions, you live with them. It's pretty simple.
Right.
And with those beautiful words being said, make sure to check out the links below if you want to get in contact with Mick. And Mick, thank you very much for coming on. It was an absolute blast having you on. I had a good bit of fun, I think, even though our jokes might be a bit weird to some of you guys.
I took some notes.